It is pretty cool when one of our published authors becomes number one in their category, number one new release, number one bestseller in their category in the online book world. But how do we get them there? There is a little bit of behind the scenes that I'm going to be pulling back the curtain on and revealing today. So I'm excited to talk to you about how to be number one on Kindle Direct Publishing, KDP. I am glad you're here. So let's get behind it and see what we're going to find out. I am very excited for today's episode of The Written Compass because I'm going to talk about something that before I kind of started down this road as a coach to support people in their embodied writing process, helping them share their words and leave a legacy with their words, how to get their words into a powerful self-published book. The idea of being number one on any kind of list related to books was this elusive thing to me. As we have embarked on this journey, my team and I, we have gotten really curious and done a lot of homework and research and have started to crack the code. Yes, that is the word I'm going to use, crack the code a bit on this idea of being number one. And in today's episode, I'm going to talk specifically about being number one on KDP, which is Kindle Direct Publishing, which is the Amazon self-publishing organization and tool and entity. All of our clients wind up publishing on KDP and on Ingram Spark. You can go back into previous episodes to find out why. Just a quick and dirty, we use KDP because Amazon, that's a big churner and opportunity to get your book out there to many folks that Amazon is capable of reaching. And then Ingram Sparks we like in particular because that is what indie bookstores really like and barnesandnoble.com likes. So we want to get our clients' books into as many places, nooks and crannies as possible. And that's why we publish in those two places. But today I'm going to focus on the idea of how do you get to number one in KDP? So many folks who write a book, they want to be a number one bestseller, right? And I'm not going to get into the details. I think I've talked about it before on the podcast, but being like a New York Times number one bestseller, it is not exactly what you think it is about. There is a committee, there is a process. It's not just who sold the most books. That is a part of it, of course, and it's not everything. And the same is actually true on KDP. So one, I want to get really transparent and clear. Being in the top 10 or being number one is less so about necessarily the quality of your book, though, of course, we work very hard and stay in our integrity to make sure we put out books that are of high quality, that have gone through a powerful writing process. And of course, our mission is to really change the landscapes of books in all kinds of genres, but particularly nonfiction, particularly personal growth and business strategy and things of the like. And we pay attention to these things because there is some street cred around hitting that number one or top 10 category. And speaking of the word category, we're going to talk about the idea of category selection, because that is really what it is about. Okay. So in Amazon KDP, when you are uploading, you're able to select 3, what they call categories. So the way that looks on the user end is when you're in the books section of Amazon online, you can go over to the left-hand side of your screen or in your searching, and you'll see what they call categories for the books. We might call them genres. And these are just different areas, topics, subjects, etc., that you are able on the author side, the publishing side, to select. Now, how do you know what to select? Well, first and foremost, we make sure that we have aligned category selection, and you can't just put your book in any old category if it has nothing to do, right? So if I'm writing a book, as I am right now, about how writing is not that hard and really learning to tap into the writer within, I cannot, and Amazon actually is cracking down on this a little bit more, KDP is, I can't put my book in the category of learning how to play poker. Okay. And yes, that is a category. It would probably be under like entertainment, games, poker. Um, but I couldn't do that. And that's not aligned anyway. It wouldn't make sense for the book. And even if that would help me, quote, get to number one, because there's not a lot of books maybe in that particular category of learning to play poker, it's just not going to work out for me. And I'm going to get a little slap on the wrist and be asked to change it by KDP. And we don't do that with our clients in their books. We want it to be an aligned category. So the whole formula is to get to number one in the category is you need to look at, you're trying to find the nice ratio between as few books as possible have actually been published in that category. And then you go and look at how many of those books in the top 10 or in the number one, how many books did they sell? Because that is going to tell you how many books you need to sell in order to get to top 10 or number one. And there's also a distinction between you can get number one or top 10 in new release of that category that hangs out for a little while, and then also just overall in the category. So it's really going to be a mixture of not only you being able to sell the books, sell copies of your books and activate your network and your people and get the word out, but it's also going to be careful selection of the category. And ideally, you're finding a category that is aligned for the content of your book and also has as few as possible books published in that particular category. And again, you're also looking at how many have they sold. So for instance, there are categories that we published recently with one of our clients, and one of the categories she only needs to sell 11 to make it to number one in that category. 11 copies. You know what I mean? And just for those of you who want to work the system, no, you buying your own books does not count. Amazon KDP does have a way to kind of keep track of that. So if you're just buying them, your author copies and things like that don't count towards this. So that is something that people would like to know. So I always want to make sure I share. So it's really this interesting kind of a little bit of a game, a little bit of code to crack, but there is a process and there is an intention. So you really want to make sure that you have either support around the category selection. You can go and do your own research. It does take a little bit of time and a lot of click and clack work. You've got to do some numbers. There are some nice calculators online to figure out yourself, kind of based on what you're seeing in Amazon KDP and how many books are published in that category, how many they've sold. And you can see this on every single book that is publishable information on the listing for that particular book on Amazon. You can go and do the math and figure that out. We use a powerful tool, a software that we use within our company. And that is how we go and do this, kind of does all that searching for us and brings us the data, the statistics, and then we get to make aligned choices based on the information that we get. So pulling back, big picture, I know that's kind of in the weeds a little bit. You really want to make sure that whatever choices you're making in the publishing world regarding your keywords, your categories, things to support you are really coming from a place of, I want to get my book into as many hands as possible. I want as many people as possible benefiting from what it is I'm trying to share with them, and understanding this category and keyword situation so that your book does show up as number one. So when people go and do a search for a book that your book would fall into that category and keyword, you're going to pop up there. We want that to show up in the searching tool. That's what's so powerful about being on something like these self-publishing tools, is because people are going there to search, and we want them to have as easy time as possible finding your particular book. And so the category selection is part of that. Keywords are also part of that. And we also have a tool that allows us to see how many times a month, average per month, someone is searching for that keyword. And keyword is different than category. Categories are preset, and you've got to go in there and select the ones you want. Keywords, you can technically put any keyword you want. You just type it in. But again, ideally, you're finding keywords that people are actually looking for. And so we have a tool that we use that actually tells us if anybody is searching for that keyword, how many times a month they're searching for it, on average, how many books are published, if they're published from one of the how many like traditionally published books are in that category, in that keyword. We have software that tells us how much the average person who has a book in that keyword is earning. That number's a little wobbly, so we don't take it too much to heart. But there's nice little numbers to understand, like how many searches are happening, how much competition there is in that keyword. And that's a part of our process as well. And again, we work right alongside with our clients to help them with this process. And it's really powerful and really fun when we get to celebrate that they're number one new release or in the top 10 for that category, among the dozens or hundreds of others that are in that category. So it's pretty cool. You want to make sure too that you really have your aligned plan for actually getting your word out for your book, because ultimately the book sales is what's going to drive this in the end and support you overall. So don't forget, yes, of course, you can sell your books online, but you can also get your books into independent bookstores. They love typically supporting local authors. And we have a great relationship with several of our local bookstores, and we have author events because once you sell 5 or 10 copies, you go tell your friends to get them, right? And then you can have a reading, and that's really cool. Don't forget too, like local boutiques and consignment stores and just all these fun little tchotchke shops that are often locally owned. They like to support local artists because maybe they don't have books necessarily, but they like the idea of having a special something that's a little different and unique from other stores like them. And then your libraries. Don't forget that you can get your books into local libraries. And then that's often a way that people were like, I really like this and I want to buy it, or they want to buy it for someone else. So there's lots of different ways to get your book out there. And all of that's going to help drive you on that number one goal. And then I also just remind people, remember what this is. It's not necessarily saying that this is the best book in this particular category. There is a system. There is a little bit of a code to crack. There is a little bit of a, it looks pretty. It looks a little shiny object, right? So remember that your words matter no matter what. And there is definitely someone out there who wants to read your book. And so whether you wind up being number one or not, you still have powerful words to say, and we want to support you in getting them out there. So let me know if this episode was helpful to you. We've been thinking about how we want to share some more of these kind of like behind the scenes, how-to types of stuff. So if this is something that resonates with you and you want to hear more about it, then definitely be sure to hit me up, send me a message, and let me know. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you later. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Written Compass. If you are enjoying this content, do me a favor and go and review the podcast. This allows me to share and get these messages out to the people who really need them, who we want to read their books in the future. You can also go and share your thoughts and tag me at Shana Hartman _ on Instagram. Again, this is just a way for us to get connected and share the writing love. And if you know that you are ready to write your book, that message that's been burning inside of you for a long time, then I want to talk to you. My team and I want to talk to you. Head on over to shanahartman.com and click Work with Us. From there, you'll see an application to explore and see if writing your book is your next best step.